And we're back for another episode of Standpoint. I'm Gabe Groisman. We're back here in the home studio in South Florida. And with me is my friend, the mayor of Miami Beach, Florida, Stephen Miner. Mayor Miner, thank you so much for being here.
Gabe, great to be here.
Uh,
Should call you mayor.
Yeah, listen, usually when someone calls me mayor, they're going to complain about something. So I like going by Gabe. It's a good thing about being a former. You'll get there, hopefully not in November since you've got a big election coming up. But thanks so much for joining. Miami Beach, for those who don't know, is just a few miles down the road from Bal Harbor, where I am. The mayor and I have been friends for many years. Full disclosure, hopefully you'll get to see that a little bit. He's done a great job in the city of Miami Beach. Anyone who's been there has seen it. His main focus really has been public safety, law and order. He's a former SEC litigator. Were you a prosecutor with the SEC? Were you prosecuting?
Prosecutor, yeah.
Yeah.
Enforcement.
SEC enforcement, the kind of guys you don't want to get a letter from. Now he's the kind of mayor you don't want to get a letter from because his focus is keeping his city safe. And really what's incredible, and one of the main things I want to talk to the mayor about today is so many people since COVID have really been focusing on local government. And if you're not safe at home, then nothing else really matters. You can argue about all these other things that are so important, but they don't really impact your day-to-day life. And being able to go to work and come back and go to synagogue or church or whatever it is that you do without fear of being attacked and mugged, it's critical. Without that, you can't have anything else. And the person who really controls that most is the mayor. I think that's been a big priority for you, mayor, and everybody has seen that difference. But lots of other issues, free speech, tackling the Hamas protests over the last several years. And he's really done it with a lot of grace and with no shy bone in his body, ready, taking it head on. So let's dive right in. This is Standpoint, and I'm Gabe Groisman. Mayor, welcome again to the studio. So happy we did this. We've been talking about having you on for a while.
Yes, great to be here.
Let's just dive right in. I think we've been talking a lot about Mayor Mamdani. Oh, wow, what a slip of the tongue of Zohran Mamdani, maybe the candidate for mayor in New York City. Obviously, everyone knows my feelings on that. A socialist, anti-capitalist, anti-American, arguably anti-Semitic man who has no business running the largest city in America. But if you see New York City, Chicago, LA, all these major cities, they're falling apart at the seams. Miami Beach seems to be like on a totally different planet. Tell me, just sort of broadly speaking, what do you think makes Miami Beach so different than so many of these other cities?
Well, one of the things, as you mentioned, law and order, it starts and stops there. And even during COVID and when there was this talk about what I call ridiculous talk about defunding the police, I was all about, I was a commissioner at the time, not the mayor yet, but I was talking about public safety, law and order, police visibility, prosecuting our cases, which we weren't doing. And I turned that around with legislation and really set the tone. And we shut down, after I became mayor, we shut down spring break, which had been a problem for many years. We had shootings on our streets. This year, in the last 2 years, we've had calm, not chaos. So it's really setting that standard, and it trickles down. The police love it. Our residents love it. It's a win-win all around. It just seems so obvious to me. But obviously other cities are not following our lead, but it's the way to go. And I think ultimately residents will demand it of their leadership.
How long have you lived in Miami Beach?
18 years.
So tell me, I've lived in the South Florida area my whole life, minus some years that I was away studying and stuff. For college, I went to play music for a little bit, went to law school. I did a little bit of everything over the years, but I've been back here since '06. I think that also the makeup of people here is very different, right? The people, we're a community actually of immigrants. If everyone comes from somewhere else, the people think Miami, everything is the same, or Miami Beach, everyone's the same, but it's not, right? I mean, the makeup is so different. I think the way the community down here reacts to different situations is different. What do you see in Miami Beach?
Well, what's interesting is we're often described as a socially liberal city, which may be the case and probably is the case, but people want their safety. And we're also pretty fiscally conservative as well. We're not having some of the issues with budgetary shortfalls. We're not. But ultimately, it's a city, no matter which political line you are, people want their safety here. And I could tell you during this couple of years ago when I was talking about law and order, even some of my biggest supporters were like, "You got to tone it down. This is a little
Right.
too aggressive, right? A little too aggressive." But I'm like, this is what I believe in, and I didn't know if this would be popular. I don't have a crystal ball. It's what I believe in, and that's what I'm going to push through. But it turned out it was very popular. People want to feel safe and be safe, and we've done that. Increasing police visibility, Our crime has been reduced. Our homeless counts are some of the lowest, actually, one of the lowest we've ever had in Miami Beach. And it resonates. People want that.
If we go a little bit into the protests that we've had in this country in the last few years, obviously, I can't believe it's 2 years already when I think about it, since October 7th. And obviously, as an Orthodox Jew, which we'll get into that, you're part of the Jewish community, you look at it maybe from a different lens, one that I look at it through. But you still have the same protests and the same issues that have come up in Miami Beach. First, tell me a little bit of the challenges that Miami Beach has had with regards to these sort of protests. Where has it come up? Where have you been surprised to see sort of that movement rear its head?
Yeah, so early on after October 7th, I was not yet I became mayor in late November, so it was a little bit a month before I became mayor, but shortly after October 7th and even after I became mayor, we did have some protests, numbering about 500. I call them pro-Hamas protests because they were carrying Hamas flags
Right.
but you're gonna have your free speech, but they got to a point where they were, extremely aggressive. They were surrounding our elderly, residents. They were intimidating people. That's not allowed. Reasonable time, place, and manner, Supreme Court law, and I brought legislation that we passed saying that you can have your free speech, but there's gonna be barricades. You're gonna be at a safe distance that you're not harassing, intimidating, and aggressively surrounding our residents. And ultimately, it worked. It really put a damper on, and we haven't seen those demonstrations, but we recently got sued. They actually sued me personally, and it's a shame. I mean, we've seen this was all before the university protests, but we see what happens when you don't put the reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on these protests. They get out of hand, and then you have a situation where people don't feel safe or are not safe. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, we had last week on the podcast Leo Terrell, senior counsel to Pam Bondi, the attorney general. He's also the head of the anti Semitism task force for President Trump. And we were talking about these time, place, and manner restrictions. For those who don't know, time, place, and manner restrictions are what they sound like. You have your free speech, you can say things, but the government can put in restrictions, reasonable restrictions as to the time, the place, and the manner. So if you apply for a permit to protest somewhere, they most likely will have to give it to you, but they can decide where it is, right? They can decide how loud you can get. They can decide how many people can gather. Those are the kind of things you can do. And by doing that in a smart way, you can prevent some of the conflicts that we see. I saw you speaking at a conference that I was involved in Beverly Hills with several hundred mayors from around the country, speaking about how you implemented time, place, and manner restrictions in a way to de-escalate, which is really what it was. These conflicts, people, they had their free speech. There was no free speech argument, except they were half a block away with barricades. They weren't going to be intimidating actually Holocaust survivors. But mayor, when you look around the country, you don't see many mayors of major cities flexing that muscle, which is clearly legal. It's right in the middle, like you said, Supreme Court precedent for many, many years. Why is it that you see so many mayors, so many of your colleagues from around the country so reticent to apply those kind of restrictions?
I think they're fearful for the backlash, and there is. The media criticizes me. We have not our residents. Our residents are fully behind me, and it's not just Jewish residents. Our Hispanic community, wide berth support for what I'm doing. But we do get the backlash from the media and outside groups that come after us, and even now with a lawsuit. Again, I don't worry about that. I do what I think is best for our city, and this clearly is the best. Nobody wants to see protests that are aggressively hounding or surrounding or threatening our residents. Not a single person, Jewish or non-Jewish, wants that in our city. So it's just having the conviction to say this is what's the right thing to do, and I do it.
So this season, our podcast, we've partnered with JNS, the Jewish News Syndicate, and we're exclusively on JNS on YouTube. We're also on other platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Rumble, etc. But we're really focusing a lot on our Jewish audience this season for really because of all the things that are happening all over the world. We thought it was important to get that voice there. You've been an Orthodox Jew your whole life, I assume.
Correct.
And this is your first public position, first as a commissioner and then as a mayor. You were working for the federal government before. Tell us a little bit what it's like from your perspective now being in a public office on a dais in front of hundreds of people, but then also traveling all over the country and the world, representing a city full of Jews and non-Jews, people of all religions, races, etc., wearing a kippah, being a Jew out in the world today.
I've actually felt nothing but support. I'm not going to say every so often I get a comment or something thrown on social media my way, but for the most part, nothing but support. Actually, after I won as commissioner, and I showed that because I go to every neighborhood association meeting, I reach out to everyone, I respond to everyone, every group, every person. And now nobody says it anymore because it's been 6 years since I was initially elected. But initially, people would say to me, wow, you're really for everyone. You're really, you're a public servant for every demographic. And I'm like, why are you surprised? Like, but people who didn't know me may have thought that I would be just for the Jewish. And obviously, I'm very strong and I'm unapologetically pro-Israel and very strong in protecting the Jewish community with police visibility, whatever it may be. But also every person, every resident of our city, I respond to everyone, and people appreciate it. And that's why I got elected, and I believe I'll be reelected.
Yeah, my perspective is similar to yours. I only started wearing a kippah a few years ago, but in the public sphere, it's generally positive so long as you present yourself in a confident and competent manner, right? So I remember I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, testifying on an anti-Semitism bill, and this is online somewhere. You can see the video, and the one of the only opponents was an African American Democratic leader, an older man, and he came with the very very common argument, counter argument to any anti-Semitism action, which is, whataboutism. So what about the rest of us, right? You could say they're all lives mattering our issue, right? Saying, well, what about how come we're not working on racism? Racism is terrible too. And it was a very loaded comment, right? It wasn't a light comment in a public hearing with a lot of people in the room. And I looked at him square in the eye, and I mean this, by the way. I said, "Sir, my contact information is in front of you. If you have an issue with racism in your country, in your state, please let me know, and I'll come stand by your side and fight against it. But today we're dealing with anti-Semitism, and here's the issue before us. And the only way to deal with it is to deal with it directly, not indirectly by washing it down and making it, I call it Miss America diplomacy, where, peace in the world, as opposed to dealing with specific things. But with the level of anti-Semitism we're having in the world today, maybe not in Miami Beach, but there definitely is a subtext, I feel, of people, especially when you're active pushing things in the Jewish community or for Israel or things of that nature, when you're visibly Jewish, where people say, he's doing it because it's his own community. Do you feel that at all, or if really in your space, that you're not getting that vibe at all?
I hear it occasionally because we had a commission meeting last week. We have legislation. For example, we beefed up our anti-BDS legislation, which I know you were one of the first, I think, the mayor to do that in a city. And we keep continuing to strengthen ours. And we had people come in arguing against it and saying some pretty vile and hateful things against the Jewish people and the state of Israel. They speak, but then I counter with the truth and the facts. So we have to deal with that, but I'm proud. I'm not apologetic. I have some people say to me, "Well, maybe you shouldn't answer so much. Just let them speak." I'm like, "No, I'm giving them their opportunity, but then I'm going to answer back." I've had to sometimes where it crosses a line. I've actually had to intervene because I'm not going to allow anybody to come in and speak hateful against any group of people. Like you mentioned racism. If somebody came in and started spewing hatred and vile things against black people, I would not allow it. It's a commission meeting. It's a different forum, and I'm not going to allow it against the Jewish people either.
Did you see the video this week? The mayor of Dearborn, who I've met before, there was a public comment in Dearborn. Dearborn's a city with the largest number of Muslims, as far as I understand, in the United States. And they were naming something after someone that was connected with Hezbollah, the terrorist organization. And a resident got up to speak against it, saying we shouldn't be naming anything for anyone affiliated with a terror organization. And the mayor went off on him and said, "You're not welcome in our city anymore." He's a white Christian man. He says, "You're not welcome anymore in our city." He says, "The day you move out of our city, we're going to host a parade to celebrate you exiting our city," right? How do you deal with these opposing voices? Not like him, Dearborn is its own issue, right? But I've been to your hearings before. You have people who oppose sometimes the work that you're doing. I think the great work that you're doing, to be clear, but people opposing it very strongly who are your residents. How do you deal with giving them a forum, but still being a mayor to them?
It's a challenge, and oftentimes the people who come in to speak at these meetings are not even residents, right? They're groups that have a mission, and they go around speaking at different
Right.
cities. So we put that in context. I give them they have the right to speak. We do have an open forum, an open mic. That being said, when they cross the line into pure hatred, I we debate a little bit. We go back and forth, and there are people who've told me, "Just let them speak, just let them speak. Don't even counter them." I'm like, that to me is not wise. That is not wise. Again, they can have their free speech, but people need to be educated and know when something is vile and anti-Semitic. We even have a resident who we had to censure. We actually, on a commission, censored him. He wrote in an email to us that when after Israel had bombed Iran and America got involved, he wrote that he hopes that Iran nukes the Jewish people and the Jewish state, basically asking, calling for the killing of civilians. It sickens me, and this person continues to send the most vile, hateful emails. But we have to deal with that. But ultimately, I think we're on the good side. We're on the right side, and 95+% of our residents see that, and I feel nothing but love.
So this is being recorded on the day that Charlie Kirk's memorial service is happening in Arizona. Over 100,000 people at a stadium. There's thousands of people outside trying to get in right now as we speak. Actually, as we're recording this, the discussions that are happening all over the country today are very related to actually the discussion we're having right now, which is to push forward whether people agree with Charlie Kirk or not on substance. The style, his idea was to spur discussions and respectful disagreements, right? Even Don Van Jones, I'm sorry, revealed yesterday he had gotten a direct message from Charlie Kirk. They were going back and forth pretty aggressively on Twitter, and he sent him a private message inviting him onto his podcast saying, let's be gentlemen and have a gentlemanly agreement and disagree agreeably, right?
Right.
Have a good discussion. What's your view on sort of that the role of good public discourse and how that can maybe bring down the temperature in our society or at least in your city?
We need more of that. I mean, that's the beauty. I've actually watched quite a bit of Charlie Kirk, unfortunately, since his heinous assassination. But he did it the right way, right? You engage in the dialogue and let the debate go. We need more of that in our country and our city. And ultimately, I do that. I mean, again, mostly I feel it's positive, but sometimes I have to engage in debates with people, and we'll agree to disagree. I had someone approach me recently. I'm very proud that we've basically tripled our purchase of Israeli bonds in the last couple of years in Miami Beach, and I had a resident who disagreed with that approach, and we had a back and forth. I mean, their facts were so woefully off that, and I try to educate them. I'm like, you need to read more because your just facts are off. You may disagree with certain things, but you just got to get the basic facts. Yeah, Charlie Kirk brought that, and I think we'll be a better country, and hopefully we learn from this. Hopefully this is a watershed moment because I did for the most part. You see some people who disagreed with him say some pretty heinous things, but for the most part, I think everyone's on board. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right or in the middle. We got to talk, just more talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And we shouldn't be giving tacit runway for people to even consider this kind of behavior. It's so many times when people are talking, people that disagreed with Kirk would say, you know, his murder was terrible, but, and then they go after it. But they don't realize when you're doing that, the subtext is, it wasn't so bad. God forbid that
Right.
that happened. And I think I had a big debate at an Eradicate Hate conference last week in Pittsburgh with a moderator of all people on that exact issue. Right? We have to understand it should be pretty simple, but the murder of a political opponent or someone you disagree with is wrong, period, full stop. And that he said, would you say that on someone on the left?
Of
Absolutely.
course.
There would be no caveats. That would be the end of the discussion. You can't at the same discussion say, but he had terrible ideas. No, the conversation's over with that bullet, right? The
Right.
conversation ends.
Senseless violence is never the answer.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the world. I want to dive in a little as a city nerd, right? As a former mayor. Miami Beach is a city from the outside that's run really well. It's safe, it's clean. There's tourists from all over the world coming there. There are issues related to water. If you go to Miami Beach after a big rain, it happens at least once a month with that king tides. You'll see water all over the roads. There's different issues that come up, spring break, etc. Tell me, what are the three biggest issues that face residents or that residents in Miami Beach care about, and then how do you address them?
Yeah, I'd say the big three is law and order, which we're definitely making great strides on. So that's always number one.
Right.
Cleanliness, which we're making, and our more of our budget is going to sanitation and cleanliness and making sure that our streets are clean. And I'll lump traffic. Traffic is definitely an issue. It's an issue South Florida wide. And we've made efforts, and it's actually helped somewhat try to mitigate the traffic. And I'll throw in the resiliency, the flooding and what have you. And we're putting in a lot of resources into our infrastructure and in addressing flooding. So I'll add a fourth if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, those are all critical issues, and people are do you find the residents in Miami Beach are more often than not engaged with what's happening in the city?
We have an active, have a very sophisticated resident base, which I love. It's a great thing. We have a number of homeowners associations get involved, and there's always going to be your residents. I'd say the most residents are just they're raising their families, they're doing what they want to do, and ultimately they vote and elect the leaders. Hopefully that we do what we're supposed to be doing, and we do. Not only me, I'm very resident focused, but our commission in general is very resident focused, and I feel like I'm partly responsible for that because I'm so responsive to our residents. I go to every homeowners association meeting. I think I sort of set the standard for what's expected of an elected official in our city, and I think our residents see that, and they respond to it, and that's why I keep getting the support that I do.
Tell me a little bit. People don't realize that mayors in Miami, most of them in South Florida or in Florida in general, also work. And so, you taking off your mayor's hat for a second, in your professional life, you're launching a resiliency fund related to Israel and technology. You want to tell me about it a little?
Yeah, I'm working for Farkas Group. Michael Farkas is the former
Sure.
CEO
Great guy.
of Blink. He's a great guy, an entrepreneur, a pioneer, and now has Next Energy, another company. But he had this vision also to create this resilience fund to ramp up food production in Israel, because Israel is so vulnerable on so many levels, including countries basically saying we're not gonna export food to Israel anymore. Turkey, for example, did just that. And what happens if more countries decide to say, you know what, we're not going to send food to Israel anymore? So we're working with the Israeli government. We're working with farmers and agriculture to ramp up the food production in Israel through this private fund, the Resilience Fund. I'm proud to be working on it. It's going to be a big success, and we're going to make a big impact for Israel.
Amazing. And what's your role specifically in the fund?
I'm the general partner, so I have a very active role. Ultimately, Michael Farkas is the executive manager of the fund, and certainly he's the capital initially to go in to make this happen. And certainly now we meet with investors, and we're launching literally we're launching the fund now, and it's exciting. It's an opportunity. We have an Israeli management team on the ground in Israel working hard. It's a game changer, and that's why it's so exciting. I mean, even the Israeli government recognized the need. They changed the name of the Ministry of Agriculture and added food security to the name not that long ago, because they recognize that that's the issue of the day in Israel. Besides, obviously, the military capacity and what they need to accomplish. And God bless the IDF for everything they do in protecting the Israeli people, not only the Israeli people, but protecting us here. We're safer. The Jewish people are safer in diaspora in America because of the strength of the Israeli government and the Israeli people and the Israeli people and the IDF. So this is working hand in hand to accomplish something that the food source and the food production and everyone recognizes it. Like I said, the Israeli government is recognizing it. Alan Dershowitz is coming out with a new book where he's talking about food security, and I was talking to him about it. Not know He didn't even know about our fund. I didn't know about that he was writing about it, but how important it is that we ramp up the food production, and this fund's going to have a big part in doing that.
It's incredible, actually, the issues when you zoom out that are facing the West, more broadly speaking, are so similar around the country, even though the different elements that are impacting them are different, whether it's in Europe or in Israel or in the United States. And food security in the United States is actually another big issue. When you have China, there's a book called The 100-Year Marathon, which I recommend to you if you haven't read it, about China's 100-year plan to take over the world. And it's not just hocus pocus. It's written by the man who was in charge of the China desk for the State Department, if I'm not mistaken, for 20 years. But it's a really, really incredible book. But it talks about how they're stockpiling grains and critical food products that you would need in the United States, and why, right? They're doing it to be able to turn off the knob whenever they want. We saw it a little during COVID in the United States, both with manufacturing, but also in agriculture, are also trying to ramp that up. So while globalization is beautiful and we have to be able to trade with our trading partners all over the world, countries in the West need to be able to be independent. And Israel is no different. And with the changes that are happening there so quickly, with the diplomatic issues that Israel is having today, it's critical. So I'm so excited you're working on that.
And if I could add
Yeah,
one
please.
one point about that, so Israel is known as a startup nation, right? All these, especially in agrotech,
Yeah.
but a lot of that technology is exported outside of Israel. But yet the smaller farms don't get to utilize, don't have the access to the capital to utilize the efficiencies that agrotech can bring, and that's part of what this fund is going to do, and allow them to have that access to the capital. It's going to be a big win for the state of Israel.
So one of the reasons why, which you may know, so maybe for the audience, is that the way that Israel regulates the agricultural industry in Israel is still socialist, like from 50 years ago. So there are caps of how much milk they can produce, how many eggs they can sell. It's all meant to be to protect the smaller farmers. But we know that the best system of all is capitalism, right? And if you make a fair capitalist society, then all these companies can flourish in a much higher level than they are now. And in Israel they call it the cottage cheese issues, right? Because it's the staples, the price of staple foods, including cottage cheese. It's very interesting that you're involved in that. Just want to ask a personal question here. When I was mayor, one of my biggest projects was our brand new park here in Bal Harbor. We made a big investment in our dock because there was a water taxi system supposed to be coming to Miami Beach. We share the waterway. Is the water taxi coming? We have a big, beautiful waterway parallel to both the islands of Miami Beach and the continuation of it here in Bal Harbor. What's the status with that, Mayor?
It's coming. I've been working on this since 2020 when I was a commissioner. There have been some private ferries in Miami Beach, but they were very pricey, like $20, $25. This is going to be either free or de minimis. Picture a trolley, but on water. And that's what it's not only going to go to Miami Beach, but also north and south. And what we'd love to do is connect with our neighboring cities as well. So we are almost there. We actually selected a vendor. It's the same vendor as in Los Angeles. We are actually literally negotiating the points of where the ports are going to be. We're trying to find some funding and grant funding from the state, the county, the federal government. But we are on the verge of making it happen. It's going to be a huge win for Miami Beach, and I think South Florida.
All right, so we're having this conversation now. It's on the record. We need to include Bal Harbor, Surfside,
Yes,
maybe even Sunny Isles. We
that's the
could
goal.
talk to the mayors over there, have it as an additional commuting system. I think it would be amazing, not just for tourism, but for actual commuting. Even if it takes a little longer, if you can actually relax and get on the internet and sit there and wait until you get to work, as opposed to sitting in the traffic, it's a huge win.
Yep.
Here's how I want to finish. You have a big election in November. I wish you much success. Most of the eyes are going to be in New York City in their mayoral election. If Mamdani is to win, and all the polls have him winning right now, things can change. There will be a bigger influx of New Yorkers to South Florida, including to Miami Beach. What's your message to the New Yorkers looking at Miami Beach as their next destination to move to if Mamdani is to win in New York City?
Come here. No, Miami Beach is such a welcoming city, really for everyone. But certainly, when we look at the Jewish populations, I have people, Israeli tech companies. We had Israeli Tech Week. You were there. I remember so many of these companies told me they're looking to open up branch offices outside of Israel. And they're not looking at certain parts in Europe anymore. They're not looking at California or New York anymore for the reasons we're talking about. They say, "Wow, we feel so safe here." It's not just an image that people portray. They say we feel it on the ground, that it's a welcoming city, and we are. Miami Beach is a beacon, and we will keep it that way. So if you're looking for a place to open your business, to come here, I will fight tooth and nail to make this the safest city in America for everyone. And that's my goal. I say that all the time unabashedly. People say, safest city in America? I'm like, yes, that is my goal. Until we get there, I'm not stopping.
Unbelievable. Listen, Mayor Miner, Stephen, thank you so much for being here. I've had other mayors on before. Justin Bibb from Cleveland was on, another good friend. For me, there's nothing more interesting than talking to mayors. They're on the ground. They're impacting people's lives every day. I wish you a lot of luck in your election
Thank you.
in November, and keep kicking ass.
That's it. I'll do it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks so much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, do all the great things you do to support podcasts. And for those of you celebrating, Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.